Welcome back, everyone. Today we're taking a deep dive into something, well, a bit unsettling. The dark web of science.
Yeah, and we aren't talking about the usual online black markets. This is where scientific innovation, it goes dark, operates outside of any ethical boundaries, legal frameworks, all that.
It's like the Wild West of science, right?
hmm
But instead of gunslingers, we've got rogue scientists pushing the limits, maybe even crossing lines we never thought we'd have to worry about.
Exactly. It's a world that's shrouded in secrecy, really hard to grasp the full extent of what's happening. But the information we do have paints a pretty disturbing picture, Hidden labs, groundbreaking discoveries, but intertwined with some serious risks.
Our source material for this deep dive mentions some things that honestly sound like they're straight out of a sci-fi thriller. Gene editing gone wrong, bioweapons, cybernetics, AI developments that could have some really scary consequences.
Yeah, and that's what makes this so fascinating, but also terrifying. These advancements could reshape our world, but not necessarily for the better. Like, take unregulated genetic engineering.
Okay, so let's start there. Most people have heard about gene editing, tools like CRISPR, right? It's revolutionizing medicine, agriculture, all kinds of legitimate research.
Hmm?
But what happens when this technology falls into the wrong hands?
That's the big question. CRISPR has incredible potential. Curing diseases, improving crops, the possibilities are almost endless. But the potential for misuse, it's equally profound. Imagine rogue scientists using CRISPR to manipulate embryos, to create individuals with enhanced intelligence, physical strength.
Designer babies. You're talking about designer babies
Yeah.
and potentially altering the human gene pool forever. That's, that's ethically questionable at best, but it could also have some crazy unforeseen consequences.
Exactly. And it's not just limited to humans. Our sources indicate that black market animal experimentation is, well, it's rampant, creating hybrid creatures with traits that could cause chaos in ecosystems.
Genetically engineered animals with heightened aggression, disease resistance. It's like opening a Pandora's box of ecological nightmares.
Right. And speaking of nightmares, let's talk about bioweapons. A chilling reality. International bans exist, sure, but they're practically meaningless in those clandestine labs operating outside of the law.
So even though there are laws, they're not really stopping anyone who's determined to develop these kinds of weapons.
Exactly. Our sources highlight synthetic biology, synthetic genomics, creating life from scratch. Imagine engineering bacteria that could clean up oil spills, produce medicines, all kinds of amazing things. But that same technology could be used to engineer deadly, contagious viruses, difficult, maybe even impossible to treat.
You're talking about a global pandemic unlike anything we've ever seen, and it would be deliberately engineered.
The dark web of science isn't just some abstract threat, it's a collection of tangible dangers. And another area of concern is this rapid development of cybernetic implants, the rise of unregulated biohacking.
Okay, now we're getting into some real cyberpunk territory here. Biohacking in itself isn't inherently bad. We have RFID implants, fitness trackers, that kind of thing. But what's happening on the darker side of this movement?
Well, underground biohackers are pushing the boundaries of human augmentation. Illegal and dangerous cybernetic implants designed to enhance memory, increase strength, even heighten senses, all without oversight, safety regulations, any of that.
So people are getting experimental implants put into their bodies with no guarantee of safety or even if they'll work.
It's a risky gamble with potentially severe consequences. And it gets even more complicated when you consider the possibility of mind control devices, implants designed to influence thoughts through brain stimulation.
So someone could control your thoughts, your actions. Does free will even exist in that kind of world?
Yeah, it really makes you question what it means to be human, to have control over your own mind. And things get even more blurry when you start talking about artificial intelligence.
AI, right.
Right.
It's everywhere and it's doing some amazing things. But there's a dark side to AI too, especially when you look at what's happening in the unregulated spaces of the dark web.
Absolutely. Legitimate AI research is making huge strides in medicine, transportation, communication, you name it. But at the same time, our sources show a pretty disturbing trend. AI development for malicious
Well,
purposes.
if we're talking AI systems designed for hacking, stealing data, even creating fake identities, it's
Yeah.
almost like giving criminals a superpower.
Right. Imagine AI that can break into any system, steal massive amounts of data, manipulate financial markets. It could cause complete chaos.
Our source material mentions AI infiltrating critical infrastructure,
Yeah.
things that impact national security. And then there are the deep fakes, AI creating fake videos and images that look completely real.
And that's the scary part about deepfakes, right? They erode trust in what we see and hear. It's like, how can you tell what's real anymore?
So you're saying we can't even believe our own eyes? It's a terrifying thought, especially when you think about how it could be used for political manipulation, blackmail, spreading misinformation.
Absolutely. It really highlights the need for critical thinking, media literacy, all of that. But the potential for misuse doesn't stop there. Our sources also mention the development of autonomous weapons.
Lure robots, that's what they're calling them, right? Weapons systems that can identify and eliminate targets without any human involvement. It sounds like something straight out of a dystopian movie.
It definitely raises some serious ethical questions. I mean, even in controlled military settings, there are arguments for and against using them. But the idea of these things falling into the wrong hands is, well, it's terrifying.
Rogue states, terrorist organizations, imagine them having access to weapons that can make life or death decisions without any human oversight, compassion, accountability.
Yeah, it's a pretty bleak scenario. We've covered a lot of ground here, and it's clear that the dark web of science is a complex issue with no easy answers. It's easy to get overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the challenges, but we can't just give up, right?
So where do we go from here? What can we do to try and mitigate these risks, steer the development of science and technology in a more responsible direction?
Well, the first step is recognizing that this is a global problem. It's going to take global solutions. No single nation can solve this on their own. We need international cooperation, intelligence sharing, a coordinated effort to crack down on these black markets.
So closing those regulatory loopholes, strengthening controls on the export of sensitive technologies, we need to cut off the funding that fuels these dangerous activities.
Exactly. We need those top-down measures, but we also need to empower individuals to make informed choices, demand ethical considerations in how these technologies are developed and used.
Okay, I get that. But how do we empower people to take action on something this complex? I mean, it's easy to feel like one person can't make a difference when you're talking about these kinds of global threats.
I understand that, but even small actions can contribute to a larger movement. We can't underestimate the power of collective action.
So let's talk about what our listeners can actually do to make a difference. What are some concrete steps people can take to fight back against the dark web of science? So we've spent this deep dive exploring this dark side of science, the unregulated innovation, all the chilling stuff. But now I think let's talk solutions, How do we counter these threats? What can people actually do?
Well, awareness is key, right? We have to stay informed about these technologies, how they're evolving, what they can do, the potential consequences. We need to go beyond just the headlines.
So be critical thinkers, not just accepting everything we read or see, especially with all the misinformation and deepfakes out there. What else can we do besides just staying informed?
I think supporting the organizations, the groups that are already out there fighting the good fight. They're promoting responsible innovation, pushing for stronger regulations, trying to raise awareness about the dark web of science. Our support can really make a difference.
Right. We can donate to these organizations, volunteer, even just spread the word about what they're doing.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of your voice. Contact your elected officials. Let them know these issues matter to you. Demand stronger regulations, ethical guidelines, more funding for research into countermeasures.
Our elected officials work for us, so we have the right to hold them accountable, demand action on things like this.
All right. And when enough people speak up, it can really drive change. We can also make conscious choices about the technologies we support.
Be mindful of the products we buy, the companies we invest in, the research we choose to support. It's easy to forget that we as consumers have power.
Absolutely. When we support companies that are thinking about ethics, responsible innovation, we send a message. And we can't forget about the next generation. We need to educate young people about these issues.
Help them become responsible stewards of science and technology. Teach them to think critically about these advancements.
It's about building that culture of awareness, critical thinking in our schools, our communities. The next generation needs the tools to deal with this world, a world that's increasingly shaped by these powerful technologies.
So let's recap. Stay informed. Support those organizations fighting the good fight. Make your voice heard. Make smart choices about the technologies you support. And educate the next generation.
Yeah, and I think the takeaway here is it's not about living in fear. It's about being proactive, engaged, empowered. We can shape the future of science and technology. We can make sure these advancements help humanity, not hurt it.
This deep dive has been, it's been a journey into the dark side of science. But what we've learned is that even though the threats are real, so is our power to counter them.
The choices we make today, individually and as a global community, they're going to determine the course of scientific progress for generations to come.
Thank you for joining us for this exploration of the dark web of science. Stay curious, stay engaged, and stay vigilant.